Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are actually talking about China because China just passed their own Citizen Data Privacy Protection Act. But my question is, what's the real purpose of this law? And here's what's going on. The primer of this, before I get into my own analysis, is coming from TechCrunch. Now, this law is called the Personal Information Protection Act, or PIPL, P-I-P-L, and it is set to take effect November 1 of this year. Now, it was proposed last year, basically signaling an intent by China's communist leaders to crack down on essentially unscrupulous data collection in the commercial sector by putting legal restrictions on user data collection. Now, the new law requires app makers to offer users options over how their information is or is not used, such as the ability not to be targeted for marketing purposes or to have marketing based on personal characteristics, and that is according to Chinese news. Now, it also places requirements on data processors to obtain consent from individuals in order to be able to process sensitive types of data, such as biometrics, medical and health data, financial information, and also location data as well. Now, apps that illegally process user data risk having their services suspended or terminated within the country of China. Any Western companies doing business in China that involves processing citizens' personal data must now grapple with this law's extraterritorial jurisdiction, meaning, like GDPR, foreign companies will face regulatory requirements such as the need to assign local representatives and report to supervisory agencies in China. But the context in which China's data protection law will operate is also basically very different than the GDPR, not the least given how the Chinese state uses vast data gathering operations to keep tabs on and police the behavior of their own citizens. We've talked about the social credit score here on this podcast and video. Now, any limits that the PIPL might place on Chinese government departments, rather their ability to collect data on their citizens, essentially may be little more than window dressing to provide essentially a veneer for continued data collection by the Chinese government. And that, I think, there's no doubt of that. Basically, their state security apparatus is the one that's collecting this while further consolidating its centralized control over government affairs. Now, it also remains to be seen how the Chinese Communist Party would use the new data protection rules to further regulate the power of the domestic tech sector as well, not just Western countries, but obviously, companies within China as well. Now, I'm going to get to that. China's been cracking down on that sector in a number of ways very recently, using regulatory changes as leverage over tech giants in China like Tencent. Now, earlier this month, for example, Beijing filed a civil suit against Tencent, citing claims that its messaging app WeChat's youth mode does not comply with the laws protecting minors in that country. So, here are my thoughts on this. Basically, this isn't going to slow the Chinese government down itself, not one bit, from data mining and monitoring their citizens. They just don't want the competition. Now, if you recall, in June of 2017, China implemented a new cybersecurity law, which now acts as the baseline for China's present-day cybersecurity guidelines. This basically ordered all Chinese tech firms with information on foreign citizens, particularly Americans. Basically, if you have American stuff like Tencent, the government is allowed access to that data on your infrastructure. And I think this is where this is going. I'm going to point out basically where I think this is going, because I think the real aim of this is actually to slow down or hinder the revenue of Western tech companies and app makers in order to favor Chinese-based ones and their population, so they can basically keep a greater eye on their citizens, but also simultaneously do harm to economic competitors. Basically, if I'm an app maker sitting here in America and I am trying to promote that in China, and the very first thing that, let's say, a user of my app in China sees is, you can opt out from Nix marketing, you can opt out from Nix tracking, you can opt out from all of those SDKs that Facebook and Google and everybody else integrates into their apps, I think that's what they're talking about. That is going to harm me economically. And every time you download one of those games to play on your iPhone and your Android, they're making money even if you're not paying anything because of the data collection policies that Google, Facebook, and others have. So I think this is essentially where they're going with this. I think they're also doing this basically to, I don't want to say quell the population because they're nowhere near a revolt from everything that I understand, but Chinese citizens can say, look, we have something as sophisticated as the GDPR in Europe, for our data protection, our government cares about us, when in reality, nothing has changed in terms of their government data mining them. Their social credit score continues to expand. The social credit system there continues to expand. It's not 100% complete, but it continues to grow and in use. And so this is one of those things I think that we are going to see that is going to benefit the Chinese government and harm everybody else. And that's exactly the way they want it. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please actually stay private. Thanks, everyone.